Some movies, they take you on a ride, but Spirited Away takes you to another world. A world that's strange, magical, terrifying, actually, and unforgettable. This isn't just one of Studio Ghibli's greatest works, in my opinion. It's one of the greatest animated films ever made, if you ask me. And in today's video, I want to talk about it. I want to talk about what makes Spirited Away so powerful, even today, decades later. So emotional and so timeless. So, let's not waste any time. Let's dive into the bathhouse of spirits and rediscover why this film still enchants us even today. So the story, it starts simple, A young girl named Chihiro is moving to a new town with her parents. They get lost and they find themselves in a strange tunnel. And just like that, they cross into another world. Her parents eat mysterious food. I don't know why they would do that. That part of the story always bugged me. And they turn into pigs. And Chihiro is left alone, scared and surrounded by spirits in a strange new world. What happens next is a magical coming-of-age journey. Chihiro must survive in a world she doesn't understand, working in a bathhouse for spirits, run by a terrifying witch named Yubaba. But this isn't just it's not just a traditional fantasy story. There's no chosen one, there's no epic battles, there's a little girl, There's no prophecy, there's nothing like that, It's about identity, it's about change, about growth, and about adapting to strange and difficult circumstances we find ourselves. And the brilliance of the story is how it never over-explains anything. That's a beautiful part of the story that a lot of writers today kind of forget. Show, don't tell. It treats its audience like explorers. We see things through the eyes of Chihiro. We learn by experiencing, not by exposition. Every corner in the world feels alive. Every spirit has its own story. And just like a dream, it all feels real, even when it's surreal. At the start of the story, Chihiro is just a 10-year-old girl, sulky, scared, unsure of herself. But by the end, she's transformed, not with magic actually, but with strength, courage, and through kindness. Her growth is subtle, you don't really notice it too quickly. It takes its time. She doesn't become powerful, in the traditional sense. She doesn't become like this kind of brave warrior all of a sudden. She's still just a 10-year-old kid. But that's what makes her arc so beautiful, It's real. Watching Chihiro learn to face her fears, take responsibility, and care for others, it's one of the most authentic transformation in animation, actually. So in that, what makes a story beautiful is not just its story, it's the characters that make the story. So let's see, apart from Chihiro, who are the other characters that make this story so beautiful? We have Haku. Haku is a mysterious spirit. He's a dragon, a servant of Yubaba, but also a boy who once saved Chihiro when she first came to the bathhouse. He's forgotten his name, actually, forgotten who he is. And in helping him remember, Chihiro also finds her own strength. Their relationship, it isn't romantic, it's spiritual kind of, it's deep, it's honest, it's just genuine friendship. It's about connection, how we connect with different peoples across time, memory, and identity. Then we have Yubaba. I think this is one of Ghibli's most iconic villains, She's not just evil. She's greedy, she's loud, she's overbearing, but also fair in her own kind of, twisted way. She represents control, unchecked capitalism, and greed. But she's also a boss, in her own way. She respects Chihiro's growth, actually. She sees, which is kind of weird. It's kind of crazy, She sees Chihiro has room for growth and improvement. And also she respects Chihiro's strength throughout the whole story. And you can actually see it. Then we have No Face, one of the most fascinating characters, I think, in the film. A spirit who reflects others Silent at first until he starts consuming everything around him. He's not evil, actually. He's just lost. He symbolizes desire, loneliness, addiction, how easily we lose ourselves trying to be seen or accepted. And then Chihiro, she sees him, she accepts him, and saves him without judgment. That, I think Chihiro is also a representation of how, no matter how old we get, no matter how we grow up, always still try to hold that childish love in your heart. Always still be a kid at heart. Even though you're not a kid in body anymore, you're growing, the bones start to ache, the hair starts to turn white. Always hold that childish love in your heart, because that is how you pass on love to anybody you see in life. Spirited Away is filled with meaning, and Hayao Miyazaki doesn't spoon feed you any of it. You know, it's a film that invites interpretation, and that's what makes it brilliant. You know, Chihiro is forced to give up her name, and in doing so risks forgetting who she is. That's not just fantasy, that's real life. You know, that's how we have to adapt to certain situations. You know, we all lose parts of ourselves in new places, jobs, relationships. We have to give up some things in order to, make room for people, in order to adapt to people's likings the same way they do for us, and finding our way back is a journey. Sometimes if you go in too deep, you can lose yourself. Names in the film are sacred. Forgetting them means forgetting your soul, and remembering them, that's how you reclaim your power. Chihiro's parents, they literally turn into pigs because they overeat without permission. That is showing a theme of how greed and consumerism can be detrimental to us if not, taken carefully. No face becomes a monster when offered too much. The bathhouse itself is a business, one that thrives off profit and image. Miyazaki, he subtly critiques the modern world, our obsession with consumption, speed, and self-interest. We don't care about others. It can be ruining sometimes. And through Chihiro, he shows the alternative, empathy, humility, patience. It benefits, it may not seem like, it may seem like you're the fool in the story, but honestly, it pays. It also has themes of coming of age, at its core, Spirited Away is a coming of age story. But it's not loud about it, it's not obvious really, it's emotional. It's kind of spiritual, and it's earned. Chihiro doesn't gain powers. She gains selfhood, she gains herself. So, I think, every time every time I watch this film, I see something new, a little gesture, a little background spirit I didn't see before, a deeper meaning in a single line. It's not just the animation, which is stunning, or the music, which is hauntingly beautiful. It's the feeling, that dreamlike state, that quiet, mysterious feeling that stays with you. When I watched it a bit when I was, younger than I am. I'm still young, but like when I watched it when I was, like a teenager, I didn't fully understand it, but it was cool. But now I feel it. Now as an adult, it hits harder. It's a reminder to sometimes slow down and enjoy the feeling you're having right now, to remember who you are, enjoy the moment, to care, to grow, and to never forget yourself. And like I said earlier, never forget that inner child in you. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and also hit that notification button so you can know when we post new videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one.